Welcome MS translators. I think we are currently broadcasting live now for another one of our Facebook Live videos. It's been a little while since we did one of these, so welcome back. If it's your first time, welcome. And as always, we're just going to give a little bit of time at the start here so that people can come on and start watching, get the notification that we're broadcasting live, and then we'll get started. So I can already see that quite a few people are in now, so welcome. I'm hoping that you're here to learn as much about MS research as possible, and not because of our little teaser in the post about lockdown hair, though you can see it is going fantastically at the moment. I am here against Eric's advice wearing the headband, but we will make sure that we focus all on MS research as we go through this. We've already had a number of questions submitted, which is fantastic, and I look forward to discussing all of those as we go through. But as always with these things, feel free to drop more questions in the chat just by commenting below as we go through. If you are joining us now, please say hi, let me know who's watching. At the moment I have no idea who all of these people are that I can see who are watching. It's great to know that you're all here, but say hi to me, let me know who you are. Hey Castle, welcome, thank you for joining us. I hope you look forward to the chat tonight. We're going to be talking about a lot of different topics, so welcome. Thank you for your comments that you've sent through before the event tonight. Hopefully things are going a bit better today, and hopefully, as I said in my reply, that the conversation and the discussion tonight helps provide a little bit of a distraction for what's going on at the moment. Hi Tony, welcome. Thanks for joining us as always. Great to have you on board. Hi Michael, welcome. Now Michael, I hope you're wearing your mask. Michael, when I asked if anyone had any questions to submit them, Michael quite humorously asked whether or not we were going to have to wear our masks for this. But no, masks are not mandatory during this online conversation unless, as I said, you are wandering around outside with me on your mobile phone, which if you're out for a wander, better things you could have on your phone than me. But if you are, you know, it's fantastic that you've joined us. Hi Lynn, hi Debbie. Welcome back, Debbie. Hi Lynn, is Lynn first time? Not sure that I've seen your name before. If it is your first time, welcome. If it's not your first time, apologies. But great to have you on board. Thanks for joining us. For those of you who may or may not know who I am, if this is your first time watching, my name's Brett. I'm one of the co-founders of MStranslate. I'm our chief science communicator. I've had a long history in MS research. And tonight I'm here to answer your questions about everything that's going on in MS research at the moment. We have had a number of questions that have already been submitted, which I look forward to going through, but as always you can submit questions during the broadcast just by typing into the chat box below, into the comment section, and let me know what any questions you have, and I promise you that we will get to all of the questions that are asked during the broadcast. If it takes me a little while to respond, don't think that I've forgotten about you. It'll just be that I'm scrolling back to find your question. And let's have a great discussion. As I always say in these things, that I find this really enjoyable. This is probably the most fun thing that I get to do on MStranslate. I learn a lot, and there is one question that we're going to be talking about tonight that was submitted that was very much news to me and something interesting, so please do join in the conversation. If you don't want to, it's more than okay just to sit quietly and listen. There's certainly no pressure to join in and comment, but please do, if you have something that you do want to share or you do want to say, please do say it. Hi Heather, hi Janine, hi Nikki, hi Melanie. Nikki and Melanie both first time. I'm trying to remember whose names I've seen before. Lynn, first time, fantastic, welcome. We hope that you really enjoy this. If you haven't seen it before, it's essentially people just listening to me talk on and on and on, but hopefully what I'm saying is interesting and informative, and as I've said, All you have to do to join in the conversation is just keep typing comments. If I've said something that doesn't make sense, please do just call me out on it, comment and say, can you explain that further? If you want me to explain more, just ask a comment. If you want to talk about something else that I'm not even talking about at the time, that's okay as well. Just post it in the chat. So we have a lot of people watching now, so let's get straight into it with questions. But as I said, keep joining in, keep commenting as you keep watching in. Make sure that you do say hi. And give the post a like. If I say something, like it, share the post so that other people can come and join in. The more the merrier, we always say. So the more that you engage with the video as we're going through, the more people can see that it's going on at the moment. The more people will have joined us, which will be fantastic. So we have posted quite a few new articles recently, and one of the ones that we have posted about was remyelination. And we know that this is a really interesting topic for our community. And we've said a number of times that myelin repair or remyelination really is the next step in terms of being able to effectively manage multiple sclerosis. We have a lot of existing treatments now that can quite effectively, for most people, stop new damage from occurring, especially the newer, more powerful treatments. But none of those treatments do anything to repair damage that already exists. And this, therefore, represents really the next big step forward that we can take in terms of trying to help people living with multiple sclerosis manage their disease. Because if we can stop new damage from occurring, but then at the same time repair existing damage, we may actually be able to see some sort of reversal of disease, improvement of symptoms, improvement of quality of life. So it's obviously a really important step, and so research into it is really exciting, and so it's research that we always want to bring to your attention. So we had an article recently, well, I've had a couple of articles recently that both talk about myelin repair and remyelination, and one was on calorie restriction and one was on anacardic acid, which is a compound that's found in the shells of cashew nuts. And both of these things promoted remyelination in animal models of multiple sclerosis. And importantly, I guess at this stage, in a comment that was made recently, is that we always need to highlight the fact of when these studies occur in animal models, that we need to be conscious of whether or not it will translate to human trials, whether those positive results will translate to human trials. And I'm happy to talk at length about that tonight, that topic as well tonight, if anyone's interested. But both of these showed that myelin repair was possible in these animal models. And so one of the questions that was asked, and it was asked by Kathy, was, with all of these different studies that are going on about remyelination, is anyone looking to see how all of these different things are connected? And so the short answer to that I said under the comment, but I said I would talk about more at length during this, is yes. And often many of these studies are looking in certain areas. And so one of the things I recommended during that post is, if you look on the MStranslate YouTube channel, and we can post a link to it in the comments section as well, is a presentation that Dr. Travis Stiles did a few years ago now, at a presentation for people living with MS in Auckland, where we were both invited to give talks there. And one of the slides he puts up, which you'll be able to see in that video, shows one of these processes that's involved in remyelination, and shows all of the different avenues and targets that different research groups are looking at the moment to see whether or not they can be used as an effective way of promoting myelin repair. So the short answer to the question about are there pathways that combine them is yes. There are certain areas that we know, certain parts of the body and certain processes that we know are impacted in people living with MS. And so different groups are looking at, can they identify and isolate different parts of those pathways to make that process work again. And that's a really important point that I've said a number of times before on these broadcasts, but I think it's always worth saying again, is that myelin damage isn't an unusual phenomenon. It actually happens quite regularly. It can happen when you have a concussion. It can happen when you can have a viral infection. But the difference is that when this happens in relatively healthy individuals or people without MS, I guess, that myelin just gets repaired. However, especially over time, in people living with MS, that repair of the myelin gets blocked. And so it just gets to a stage where we can't have that natural myelin repair anymore. And so all of these different projects that are going on looking into remyelination are looking into those areas that they know are important. And so one such one that we talk about in these articles is oligodendrocyte precursor cells, or OPCs. You know that scientists love to use really long words for things. But these OPCs are the cells that essentially grow up. Mature is the word that we would use. Mature into oligodendrocytes. And oligodendrocytes are the cells that are important in terms of making the myelin. And so a lot of this research is looking into what can we do. We know that that process is stopped in people with MS. We know that they have problems having those OPCs turn into oligodendrocytes. They have problems having those cells grow up into the cells that can make the myelin. So what ways can we have to promote that process? And so that's a really important point, that yes, there is a common ground and people are just looking at different avenues of getting there. It's essentially like taking Google Maps. You know where you want to go, but you don't necessarily know the best way of getting there. And so this is multiple groups trying to take different routes and finding out which route is the most effective. Hopefully that analogy makes sense to explain what I was just trying to say in a long-winded sort of way. So happy to take more questions on myelin repair, happy to talk about animal models. We can get more topics coming through as we go about it, but as I scroll back through the comments, make sure I'm not missing anyone. Hi Kim, welcome. Kim, is this your first time on a MStranslate Facebook Live? If it is, welcome. If it's not, welcome back. Hi Sally Ann, welcome. I know it's not your first time to one of our videos. Welcome back, and I have your question written down here and we will get to it as we go through, I promise. Hi Leanne, welcome back. Hi Gilles, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And I've got a question here from Castle. Castle, do you think remyelination would be appropriate for those of us who have had MS for a long time? Excellent question. Really, really good question. Not one that I have a great answer to because we just don't have the information to be able to really give a good answer to that. The studies just haven't been done yet. I think an important point to make is whether or not we're looking at the repair of the myelin, which is the insulating sheath that covers the nerves and helps the signals move along quickly and efficiently, versus whether or not we've actually got axonal loss, which is sort of lost the nerve. Those are different things. But yes, like I think it's possible, but we don't have, we just don't have the information on that yet to say it. I mean, remyelination studies, especially in human studies, are just very low at the moment. We know that Biogen has their anti-lingo study that's coming up for phase 3, but beyond that, we don't have a lot of human studies or any data coming out of those for remyelination therapies yet to be able to answer that question. When we've talked to people involved in the space around what they think are appropriate timelines for this sort of stuff, you know, Travis, for example, in our World MS Day video talked about the fact that he thinks we should be seeing sort of late stage remyelination trials within the next 5 to 6 years, and hopefully something on the market not too long after that. But you know, we're unclear at this stage what that's going to be like. So yeah, sorry, it's not a great answer to your question, Castle. At the moment, there's nothing to suggest that maybe it won't, which is different to current therapies. There are reasons why we think that the existing therapies that we have are much more effective in people living with relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis versus the progressive forms of the disease. I guess people who have had it for longer that have gone to secondary progressive, or people with primary progressive. We have ideas as to why those therapies might not work. Remyelination therapies may be a bit different. There would be factors in there, and there are some I can think of, but yeah, we just don't have the information yet. Second time, Kim. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us again. That's good. That means that the first time wasn't such a bad experience that you never wanted to join us again. So I take that as somewhat of a compliment. And Kim's asked, hi, Darren. Thanks for joining us. Kim's asked, just about animal trials. I've heard of mice. Is there any other animals? So there's also rats, slightly different, but there are also primate models. Macaques is something that gets used quite a bit, but certainly mouse models are the most common ones that you would see with multiple sclerosis. Ben, hi Brett, I've just been diagnosed with MS with 25 to 50 lesions. Only symptoms I have are vertigo and cognition memory issues, and I'm very healthy, not on medication. Would Lemtrada be too risky as a first-line treatment? Thanks for joining us, Ben. I don't know if this is your first time on one of these broadcasts, but thanks for joining us. My answer to that is, unfortunately, I can't give you an answer to that. My background, if this is your first time, my background is as an MS researcher. I'm not a clinician, so I just can't give any sort of responses to anything clinical. Unfortunately, my advice for that is just that that's a conversation to have with your neurologist or your healthcare professional. I've had another couple of questions that have also been submitted along similar lines, but yeah, unfortunately, sorry, I just can't discuss those things in any depth because it's just not what my training is. So sorry about that. Castle, I'm bloody 50 in 6 years. That's okay. That's 6 years away, and 50 is not that old anyway, so nothing to worry about. Kathy, hey Brett, I like your eye. So look, we promised that there would be some lockdown here. I've kept it somewhat restrained. As I said before, I don't know if you've just joined the broadcast, I said I'm coming on with a headband, certainly against Eric's advice, but we're going with it, and I think it's working for me, so that's all that really matters. Darren, the myelin repair will only help if the nerve cell isn't damaged long-term, right? Yeah, so that's what I was trying to get at in terms of whether it's just damage that's related just to that sheath or whether there's damage to the nerve underlying that as well. Because at the moment, what we're talking about is, yeah, just repairing that sheath to help the signal go along quicker. And so that's the first insult, for want of a better word. That's the first attack. That myelin, that protective coating gets damaged. Over time, obviously, once that's not there, the rest of the nerve can be exposed. So it will depend slightly on that. So yeah, you're completely right, Darren. Kim, thanks heaps. I'm a vet nurse, just curious. Yeah, no, look, it's a really good question. I have certainly seen some studies done before on macaques, though nothing recently. There's obviously, when it comes to these things, and we can have lots of ethical discussions about the use of animals in medical research, but obviously the advantages of using mice are just that they're quite easy to breed, quite small, cheap to house. You obviously, as you get to bigger and bigger animals, that stops being so true, much more difficult to house, and so yeah, you need really specialist facilities to be able to do that, so you don't see those studies done as much. Castle, how do you make the animals have a MS for trials? Again, really good question. So I guess one point to make straight away is that the mice or the animals that they have, or the animals that they use have a model of multiple sclerosis, which is called experimental autoimmune encephalomyelitis. Once again, scientists like big words. And so it's a disease, the mice get a disease that really mimics what we see in multiple sclerosis, but there are certainly differences, so it's not perfect, and that's why a lot of the times you will see that the results don't necessarily translate between what we see in the animal studies and what we see in human trials. There's a couple of different ways that the animals can be given multiple sclerosis. Probably the main way when we're talking about EAE is that they tend to get injected with part of the myelin sheath. And so what that does is they know that there are parts of the myelin sheath, parts of the proteins that make up that myelin sheath that can elicit an immune response and get that autoimmune reaction to happen, so that the T cells and the B cells start to attack that myelin and cause that demyelination that we see. There are other models of demyelination that are used a lot, and the most common one is called the cuprizone model, and that's a toxin that can lead to demyelination as well. So both of those are common models that you might see in multiple sclerosis research. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for all of the comments. These are fantastic, guys. Keep this conversation going, and it's great to see so many people on watching. Make sure you say hi. It's lovely to have you all here, especially while it'd be good to know where everyone is in the world. Obviously, we're based in Melbourne, and so we're currently in stage 4 lockdowns at the moment, so it's nice to be able to connect with people, even if only virtually. So it's great to have you all here. Megan Lennon, welcome, Megan. Is this your first time? I don't think I've seen your name before. So if it's your first time, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Have you heard of the TB vaccination helping autoimmune disease, including MS? Saw on TV the other day. I haven't. No, I haven't seen any research on that. If you could flick me the link to that, I would be interested to hear about that. I haven't seen anything on that at the moment. Certainly I've seen research a little while ago now talking about vaccinations and showing that no vaccinations were causing MS or increased risk of getting MS. But I haven't seen anything about a vaccination helping with the autoimmune diseases, including MS. I'd love to see the study. If you can provide any links to that, I'd certainly like to read, and I'm sure people would be interested in hearing about it as well. So if you send it through, I'd be happy to read it and put a summary article up onto MStranslate. Thank you for sharing that. Patricia, how will rebuilding myelin actually happen with us? Again, an excellent question. I assume, do you mean, so I'm going to ask you a question back, and then I will come back to your response to my question. Do you mean inside the body, or do you mean what sort of processes will that, like, what will that treatment look like? As in, will it be an injection, or will it be a pill? Or do you mean actually what's going to happen inside the body? If you can let me know, Patricia, I'll circle back to that question, I promise. No worries, Brett, just thought I'd ask in case. Thanks, Ben. Hopefully, feel free to stay on for the rest of the discussion. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about MS research. But yeah, sorry, just can't give any sort of clinical advice. Kathy, I think we're still talking about my hair. So we knew this was going to happen if I put it into the post. Thank you. And the bit in brackets seems like maybe the first bit is sarcastic, but that's okay. I'll just ignore the bit in brackets. Leanne, at least it isn't a man bun. Well, look, if we do a Facebook Live in a couple of months, who knows what it'll be looking like then. And Sally sounds like she would be approving of it. So, we'll see what happens with it. We just thought it was something that the reason, I don't want to spend the entire Facebook Live talking about my hair. The reason that we put it in, there's two reasons why we put that into the post. One is because we know that a lot of people around the world are going through quite a tough time at the moment, and we thought this might be just a little fun way of making people smile. And if that happens at my expense, that's completely fine. I have no issues with that. And the second reason is we thought it might make people a bit more interested to log in and watch the video to see what on earth my hair was looking like. And the more people we can get in, the more people are hearing about MS research and getting excited about it and getting engaged and getting their questions answered. So again, we thought that was worthwhile doing. We know we're talking about serious stuff here, and we know that, you know, we take what we do very seriously, and talking about MS research is really important, and we're not making light of that at all. But if we can, you know, create a few smiles along the way and have a little bit of fun, anyone who knows us and knows me and what we do here, you know, we'll always take that opportunity as well to try and brighten things up, especially with everything that we're going through at the moment. Heather, how do you think remyelination would happen? What likely method? Okay, so again, I'm going to ask the same question. Sorry, I'm going to ask, it's probably late and this is me. Is this do you mean in terms of what would the treatment look like, or what would be happening inside of the body? I'm going to guess, I'm going to answer one because I'm going to guess. I'm so falling behind on comments. Thanks, guys. Keep the comments coming. I will catch up, I promise. I'm going to guess that mostly what you're asking is what that treatment would look like. And the short answer to that is we don't know. Again, if you listen to any of Travis's stuff, it's really interesting. One of the things that he talks about is their first interest is finding something that is effective. Once they find that it's effective, they don't care how it's effective. They just want to find something that works, and then they'll work back from that to find how can they get that same effect in the best way possible. So obviously most people would prefer to be able to take a tablet or something like that over an infusion. But Travis, for example, if you've ever heard him give this talk, it's quite interesting. He talks about, you know, if you had someone, I think he often uses, well, he sometimes uses MS. He says if we could cure MS by giving you one-time injection through your eyeball. Now this is, you love the imagery that he creates with this, but it's just about, you know, sort of teaching a point. If you could cure MS with a one-time injection, but the needle has to go through your eyeball, would you take it? And when he says this in a crowded room of people living with MS, most of them raise their hand and say, yeah, I would. And so that's sort of the approach that they're taking with the remyelination therapies as well. It's, you know, we don't want to just look for something that works only if it can be given as a tablet. We want to look for something that works. And then when we find what works, then we'll see if we can work back to give something that has that same effect in a way that people are, you know, most happy with. But, you know, people need to be involved in that process as well. And that's something that Travis really highlights too, is that, you know, it's important that we include people living with MS in those discussions, because it's no point having other people make decisions about, you know, what they think the type of therapy people are going to be happy receiving. You know, if it means that quality of life might improve, you might be willing to take those sorts of things. So I'm hoping that's the question you're asking. In terms of if it's going to be an infusion, if it's going to be an tablet, you know, we're looking at mesenchymal stem cell therapies that may be able to do remyelination. That's another topic I'm going to come to soon as well. Yeah, we just don't know yet. But, you know, that sort of stuff, we will make sure over time we'll provide any information on that becomes available once bigger trials start on the topic. Thanks, Darren. Thanks for coming in. As always, this does get published to our page afterwards, so you can watch it anytime. If you do want to log off, don't log off though. But if you do have to log off, you will be able to watch the full replay of this later. Megan, yes, first time. Thank you. 38 had MS since 33. Had Tysabri and Lemtrada. Thanks. I'll send a link. Thank you. Yeah, look, I'm really interested to read it. Thanks for, you know, this is, as I've said before, you know, these sessions are as much about me learning as you guys. I mean, I learn a lot from the discussions that we have. I hear about things that I haven't heard about before. Like this, it's very hard to stay on top of all of the MS research that's out there. I think last year there was about 4,000 research articles published on MS. I can't read all of them. But so it's great to be able to hear or have other things brought to my attention and hear your stories as well. So thank you for that. And thank you for joining us. Hopefully you hang around for the rest of the discussion. Hi, Leah. Thanks for joining us. Welcome from Canberra, Heather. What will the treatment look like? Okay, well, hopefully I've just answered that question, Patricia, but let me know if I haven't. Castle loves the hair too. We're going to see, this is the problem of, we're going to keep going. It's going to keep coming back to the hair. Ben, hi Brett, it is my first time in here. I'm in Brisbane currently. Have you studied research involved in using gold nanocrystals in remyelination? Currently human trials in progress. So I haven't studied it personally. I have read the papers, though I haven't read those papers in quite a long time. So I can't remember the details of it off the top of my head, but it is really interesting research. I will make a note of it, and if that's something that's of interest, I certainly can publish an article on that and where that research is at in the near future. So thanks for mentioning that, Ben. Yeah, as I said, I have read it, but not recently, so I couldn't comment on any of the details. Sally Ann, do you think gene therapy would offer any type of therapy like it is being used to target cancers? Good question. So I haven't seen a lot recently in terms of using gene therapy as a treatment for multiple sclerosis. But I will provide my thoughts on it. And so remember, these are just my thoughts at this stage. The difficulty with that sort of stuff when it comes to multiple sclerosis is that while we know that there is a genetic component to MS, we know that it's not an entirely genetic disease. And we know that through studies of monozygotic twins, and we know that there's only sort of a 25 to 30% concordance rate in terms of if one twin gets MS, the other twin would also get MS. If it was purely a genetic disease, we would expect that to happen 100% of the time because they have exactly the same genes. So are these other environmental components that are involved. So that firstly is going to make it difficult for any sort of gene therapy necessarily to work. We have other things. We have identified genes that we know increase susceptibility to multiple sclerosis, and we know that having certain variations of those disease can increase your likelihood of getting MS. Now, those increases aren't huge. The biggest one is through certain parts of the immune system that present information, essentially. They present small parts of proteins to T cells. We know that if you have certain parts of those, or certain versions of those, you may be at a greater risk. And that tends to be sort of a 2- or 3-fold increased risk. Some studies have suggested it can be higher than that. But there are lots, and there's over 150 genes now that, gene variations that they've worked out that can increase susceptibility to MS. The more of them you have, a big study by the International MS Gene Consortium, Genetic Consortium, found that the more of those gene variants that you have, the more susceptible you are. So it is cumulative in terms of increasing your risk. Now, I don't think gene therapy in any of those, we know that a lot of those are involved in the immune system, but there's nothing really there that would be easy to target where we could say if we correct this one gene, we would necessarily be able to treat MS effectively. Now, whether or not there would be ways of being able to affect T cells or different parts of the immune system using gene therapy, it's not something I know enough about to comment in any great detail. So we're learning more about gene therapy all the time. There are certainly avenues that are opening up. It's not as simple as, say, for genetic disorders where there's a clear gene that you may want to target, or in some cancers where there's a clear gene. Whether or not there is things in the T cells that we could be looking at, or in the immune system that we could be looking at and targeting that from a genetic perspective, potentially. Heather, bring it on eyeball treatment. See, it's an interesting story, but it gets the same reaction, and it's a really good point, because it's, we shouldn't be necessarily leaving it up to other people to make those decisions in terms of what people are willing to do for a treatment that will help. Leanne, are you able to get to some of the questions? Yes, sorry, I'm trying. Sorry, I will. I've got my list of questions. What I'm going to do is so Georgia, Patricia, talking about fatigue, I will get to that. Ben, I will write that article. Okay, so now let me, as Leanne said, I have a lot of questions that have been submitted previously that I will get to as well, but keep your comments coming through. I will keep asking them. I will keep asking them. I will keep answering them after I get through some of these as well. So I'll flick back and forth. All right, so Leanne, seeing as you've asked and seeing as you're here, let me skip because I know you have one here. And your question actually relates perfectly to what I was just talking about in terms of how I learn things from this. So Leanne posted in the comments under one of our posts around this, talking about a phenomenon that I believe you've experienced, Leanne, but also that you've seen many people in other MS groups talking about. And that's the fact that the people living with MS are often reporting that they're experiencing more weakness in the opposite side of the body to the one that is their dominant side. So for example, if you're right-handed, then you're experiencing more weakness in your left-hand side of your body. If you're left-handed, then you're experiencing more weakness in your right-hand side of your body. Now, my first comment is I had not heard of this before, and this is one of the things where I say that you guys are really important, in helping to direct research. This is why these conversations are really important, because we learn things and these things can go on to researchers and they can look into it more and find answers, and they might not know it either, because these are the sort of things that don't necessarily get brought to the attention of people. So it's really important that those sort of comments and those experiences come to light, and so we can discuss them. I've had a look through published literature, and it's fair to say that there's not a lot in terms of what's going on. There were two things that I did find. There was a study from 2009 that actually looked at whether handedness was related to susceptibility to getting MS, and this was based on a thought at the time. Now, this was a really small study, but it was based on a thought that potentially left-handedness was caused by differences in sex hormone exposure during development. And so they wondered then whether if sex hormones are also involved in multiple sclerosis, because there's been a thought that potentially sex hormones play a role, and obviously we see that there is a different ratio between women and men that's now probably getting closer towards 3 to 1 in terms of people who are affected. Whether or not that left-handedness, then if that was caused by sex hormones and MS was caused by sex hormones, could there be some link there that would be able to sort of shine a light on it? But they didn't find one. So that was a long story that I just told, but they didn't find one. Interestingly, there was another small study published more recently. So this one, I believe, was in 2018. And this one looked at essentially what you were talking about. They looked at problems and weakness in the side of the body and compared it with handedness. But what they found, interestingly, was in their controls, so people who didn't have MS, they found that their dominant side was stronger than their non-dominant side. So they looked mostly at things like grip strength and found that their dominant hand, so if they were right-handed, their grip strength in their right hand was significantly better than in their left hand. But interestingly, because this goes against what is being said here, they found that in people living with MS, they didn't see that difference at all. In fact, there was no difference between their right and their left hand, irrespective of what hand was their dominant one. So that was a very small study, only a few people, and they did mostly look at things like grip strength, and mostly were focused on hand movements. So I guess there are lots of other things that could be looked at there in terms of other parts of the body and other weaknesses and mobility issues that may exist, but that was all I could find at the moment. So look, it's really interesting. I'll certainly do some more research into it, look more into it and see what I can find. From my initial look, there's not a heap that's been found about it, but hearing that there's so many people saying that they're seeing the same thing, it's worth having a bit of a think about and seeing what's going on. So just looking through comments, I mean, Rosalind, okay, so Rosalind dominant side is weakest. Welcome, Rosalind. I don't know, again, I'm just welcoming people whose names I'm seeing for the first time. So if this is your first time, welcome. Castle, I'm right-handed on my left side, so similar experience to what we're hearing about from other people, that it's the non-dominant side that seems to have more issues. Georgia, similar thing. 10 months before my diagnosis, I was diagnosed with Bell's palsy, and that affected my left side. So that might also be there. Left-handed right side weakness. So Heather, opposite to what we're hearing from other people, but same in terms of it's that same pattern. So yeah, look, answer to that question, very, very interesting. Let's keep talking about it, but there's not a lot out there at the moment. So thank you for the question, Leanne, and sorry that it took me so long into the broadcast to get to it. There's just so many questions coming through and so many comments, which is fantastic. Please keep those coming through. Welcome, Rosalind. Thank you for joining us for the first time. Hopefully you're enjoying it. Thank you for joining in the conversation as well. It's fantastic to have you on board. I'm just scrolling up to see if I've missed anything there. Kathy, your question about the remyelination and the different studies and whether they were looked at collectively, I did talk about that at the start. So when this gets published after we're done, just watch it back. It is there. It must have been just slightly before you joined the broadcast. But yeah, I did answer that question. It is there. So you can have a look at that. Actually, I think you can rewind during the broadcast, but I would stay live with us and just go back and watch it afterwards. So yes, thank you for that, Leanne. All right, I'm going to keep dropping questions as you see them. I've made a note. I also need to talk about fatigue. I've made those comments, so for those who are wondering about that, I will talk about it. Sally Ann, seeing as you are here and you're on the broadcast, let me answer your question. So you were just interested in any updates on ocrelizumab or Ocrevus. So most people on the broadcast, give me 2 seconds, I'm just going to have some water. I just realized I've been talking non-stop for about 42 minutes. What was I just talking about? Ocrelizumab. So most people would know that ocrelizumab or Ocrevus is a B-cell therapy. So this depletes B cells, and we did an interview. If you're interested to know how Ocrevus works or ocrelizumab works, we did an interview a couple of years ago now with Professor Roland Martin from the University of Zurich. And he did a really exciting study that showed for the first time how B cells were involved in the development of multiple sclerosis and why they were so important. And they're actually, for a long time, we thought about T cells as being the things that were critical for MS. And you've probably heard of them before, but he actually showed that the B cells are really important for getting the T cells going, for actually starting them up, activating them and getting that process going, which is why it makes sense that treatments like ocrelizumab, which are a B-cell therapy, are effective in treating MS. And actually there's been another one that we will talk about as well, which is ofatumumab. They love giving me these names that are really easy to say. Ofatumumab, which has also just received FDA approval, which is also a B-cell therapy, and it's shown to be quite effective in MS trials. In terms of updates for ocrelizumab, there's been a couple of studies recently that have provided some updates. One was from published this year, so these have both been published this year out of the UK, and this is looking at extension data, so looking at post-trials once they've kept the studies going once the initial trial has finished. And what they found from these extension studies, which could be of interest, is that they managed to get quite substantial disease control after just 3 treatment cycles. And so their conclusion from this was that possibly we may be able to reduce how often people need to receive a dose of ocrelizumab or of Ocrevus, which means that the outcome of that, and the reason why we would want to do that, is that you're still getting the benefits of the treatment, but the side effects and the risks associated with it are going to be less because you're needing the treatment less often. So that was one update that was quite interesting. Now there's still work that needs to be done on that to see whether or not that is the case, but that's something interesting. And there was another. This is just a very small study. This was published recently out of the Netherlands. Only 21 people, but this was looking at people with primary progressive MS who had started ocrelizumab. Now, there was only about 20 of them. They did have an outcome of this study that suggested that there can be some disease stabilization through using ocrelizumab in these people with primary progressive MS. They did say that there was a hint that some might have even improved clinically slightly. But again, that was a really small study. Now, that study really does sort of, I guess, it's not different to what we saw in the initial trials of ocrelizumab. And, you know, we saw that, I guess why ocrelizumab achieved a lot of attention early on was because it was the first treatment that did show any benefits for people living with primary progressive MS. Now, since then, we've seen that it hasn't really received any support through regulators or funding bodies for the treatment of primary progressive MS. And the reason for that is that the trial data. Now, I'm not going to enter into this in terms of whether or not rightly or wrongly about this, but the decision is really made on the fact that that benefit that was seen was very small. So while you know, it was exciting because nothing else had shown any benefit at all, it was quite a small, and so essentially the decision, as far as I understand it, has been made by these bodies around the world to suggest that the risk versus benefit ratio isn't enough. The benefits that you get from it don't outweigh the risks. Now, the more data that we get around it, it's good to see that there is more studies going on to it, because we know that people living with progressive MS you know, need more treatments available to them. Obviously, our advances in treatments for people living with progressive MS are lagging behind those for relapsing or remitting MS. But so it's good to see that sort of stuff is going on, but we'll need to see what sort of more data can come out around that at the moment. So just scrolling back to see if there's anything on that. I will get to comments. Dave, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Beasting therapy, I can add that to a list of things to talk about. I've only seen very brief things about it in terms of MS, but I can get to that. Yeah, so I mean, the beasting stuff has achieved some interest over the past couple of days based on those findings of the PhD student that did show some benefits in terms of being able to, a compound from it could kill cancer cells in cultures within a lab. I haven't been able to look at that data yet to see anything about it, so I can't comment too much on that, but I did read those reports as well. Hi Kevin, welcome. Thank you for joining us all the way from the US. Obviously a much different part of the day for you there, but thanks for coming in. Now I've got questions from both Dave and Kevin to get through. Dave, I'm going to answer your question first because it's going to be a bit quicker, but Kevin, perfect time for us to shift to talk about HSCT, and keen to have you as part of that discussion, so we will get to that in a second. Dave, your question that you posted was around a conflict of disclosure statement from MS Australia. So I guess just to, while I've got you on here, I guess just to, and for anyone else that's listening, just to sort of, yeah, especially for people who might be new to MStranslate, new to these conversations, just to, I guess, explain who we are, who I am, who MStranslate is, and what we do. MStranslate is an independent initiative that was set up by myself, Brett, and my brother Eric, to inform and engage the MS community about all things related to MS research. My background is in MS research. I was in MS research for many years, and I also have a background in science communication, which enables me to take all of the research that's going on and present it to you guys in a way that's hopefully easily accessible, but most importantly easy to understand, but probably even more importantly accurate, because with all of the articles that we write, it's all based on published studies, and I go into the fully published journal article and read that article, look at the data before we write up our articles on it. And so obviously my research background allows me to do that, rather than necessarily just relying on things like press releases that may not necessarily be 100% accurate. So MStranslate has been in existence since 2012. I think we've been going for about 8 years now. We'll be celebrating our 8-year anniversary, I believe in September or October. So it's been a long time now. But essentially, Dave, through that whole time, and anyone else, MStranslate has been largely unfunded for everything that you see. So we do this work because, look, we don't necessarily want to be unfunded, but we do this work because we think it's important. We're constantly looking for ways to support ourselves to be able to keep MStranslate going and to be able to allow us to focus more time and more energy into MStranslate. But yeah, we are largely unfunded for all of the work that you see. In terms of MS Australia, MS Australia works independently from MStranslate. We don't have necessarily any association with them. We always like to maintain a good working relationship with all of the MS organisations, both here and internationally, and we have good relationships with the MS Society in the UK. We have good relationships with the MS Societies in New Zealand. We often have a lot to do with them, and we have good relationships with the MS Societies here in Australia. But we do sit independently from them. So anything about a disclosure statement from MS Australia has nothing to do with us. They're a completely separate organisation from us. We sit completely independently from all of those. So hopefully that answers your question around that and provides a bit more information about who we are and what we're doing. In terms of, but do you get paid? I mean, look, I don't want to I don't want to get into too much in terms of our financial situation in terms of what we do for MStranslate, because that would be a whole nother conversation. We don't really get paid for anything that you see on MStranslate, no. I mean, we don't get paid for the articles we do. We're not getting paid for these Facebook Live videos. We do other work with researchers. We do other projects that sit beside MStranslate that help us do this work. But 99% of the things that you see on MStranslate would be completely unpaid work that we do. The only times that would be different is when we do a feature week with a research group where there is a small fee associated with just all of the video production work that we do. But no, essentially for MStranslate, no, but we do other things to keep us going and to support MStranslate. Kevin, HSCT. Let's talk about HSCT, because I know it is an area that you're really interested in. It's an area that I'm really interested in. It's an area that I think, and you would probably agree, there's a lot of misinformation about. And so it's something that it's something that we should be discussing more and making sure that there's really good, high-quality information coming out. So which I think is the first part of your question is, you know, why is there a lack of information about HSCT getting out to the MS community? Now, you can tell me more about what you think the environment's like in the US for this, because obviously I'm sitting here in Australia, and so it might be slightly different. Obviously, I can see what's going on online, but you might find that the situation is slightly different over there. But I would like to comment on that. Firstly, I would like to say that I hope MStranslate is not an organization that doesn't talk about HSCT. I've said that's a double negative. MStranslate certainly talks about HSCT, and we love providing updates and research updates on it to our community because we know it is something that is of interest, and it is something that is obviously showing great results and can be really beneficial for some people living with MS. The talk that I gave in New Zealand a few years ago now at their research day to their communities was actually all about HSCT. So it was all about explaining to people living with MS what the treatment was, how it worked, and what the current studies had shown and current trials had shown in terms of data, in terms of how it could benefit people living with MS. So I'm more than happy to talk about it, and I hope that people who attended that session found it really useful. And I've talked at length about it on our Facebook Live videos, and you'll see articles up on our website about it as well in terms of research results that have come out. If anyone is watching who is unclear about what HSCT is or wants me to go into how that treatment works, I'm more than happy to provide that information now, but I've done it before, so maybe a lot of you will have heard it, but please let me know if you do want me to talk more about what it is. The HSCT environment in the US is very poor. Kevin, do you mean that in terms of, so I'm going to keep asking you questions, and I'll keep talking, but I will make sure that I read out everything that you write. Do you mean that in terms of money that's going into research? Do you mean in terms of information that's getting out to people? Is there a very negative viewpoint in terms of HSCT? Is it viewed badly, or can you explain a bit more about what you mean by that? Because I know that one of the biggest studies that have come out for HSCT and the use of MS has come from Northwestern University and Bert's group there. So I know that there is quite large HSCT studies going on in the US, but maybe the information about that isn't necessarily getting communicated. Tell me more about that. In terms of your second comment, so you also talked about its potential use as a frontline treatment for MS. Now, this I think is a really interesting conversation, and so I'm purely going to be sharing my thoughts on this now, because I think there is data, and I'll reference data as I'm talking about it, but there are things that we need to know as well as we go through. So in terms of what we have now for data for HSCT, I would say that we have a lot of trial data now that shows this can be a really effective treatment for some people living with MS. We've seen long-term data now. Some studies are probably getting close to being out towards 10 years. And 8 to 9 years where you see people who have essentially had no evidence of disease activity for a really long time. So it's can be a really long-term effective treatment for some people living with MS. And so I think because we have that data, and that combined with the fact that I think over time as well, and especially over the last few years, there have been changes made to the procedures that are used for HSCT that have made it a safer treatment as well. I think there is still, initially, and this is now many years ago, we've been talking about HSCT for probably 5 or 6 years in terms of treatments for MS, if not longer. That back then the biggest concern was we weren't even really talking about is it or is it not an effective treatment. It was more it's too dangerous. The risks associated with it outweigh the potential benefits, and we're too worried about people having that high dose chemotherapy, getting sick. The mortality rate was too high. Now that's changed, and I think we can be completely open about that the process since then has certainly been to reduce the dose, and there have been lots of studies that have looked at what is the the amount of chemotherapy that's needed. How severe does that chemotherapy need to be in that initial stage, so that we can still achieve really good results? And so they've managed to find that you can lower it and lower it and lower it to a much more manageable level, where yes, you're still wiping out a large part of the immune system, and yes, the treatment is still not necessarily amazing. That chemotherapy treatment is still not necessarily amazing, but it's a lot safer than it used to be. And this, if you're reading through studies, the words that you might be seeing is myeloablative versus non-myeloablative. And the non-myeloablative is the more moderate version that is now used a lot. So some people still argue, and there was talks at ECTRIMS last year that people were still arguing that the mortality rate is still too high, even though it has been lowered. They still think it's too much of a risk. Now, that was part of a debate, so they kind of had to take that approach, and I think at the end they even admitted that they wouldn't necessarily agree with what they were saying too much. But there is still that thought of there is a safety concern, and I don't think we can get away with that, but there are safety concerns for all of the MS treatments that we have at the moment. Now, there may be some parts of this that are more concerning than others, but all treatments have risks, all treatments have benefits, and so I guess the question is always, with any treatment, does the benefits that you get outweigh those risks? Now, certainly in terms of some of the results that we've seen from people who have undergone HSCT, who are living with MS, those benefits can be huge. As I said, we've seen lots of individuals who have achieved really positive results over a really long time. Because of that, your question of should it be made a frontline treatment, I think is really valid. And I think the questions of, do we, at the moment, you would probably have people having to fail a couple of the newer, more powerful existing treatments before they get recommended for maybe HSCT, if they get recommended at all. Now, I guess the question is, should it be being proposed as, should it be part of that initial discussion? Now, I don't necessarily think I can answer that hugely, but I think the key word that you said in your question was information. And I think we should always be, I will always be an advocate for making sure that the MS community is getting the best information that it can get, in terms of the most accurate, in terms of the most in-depth, in terms of the most thorough information that they can have on all topics, so that then they can make a really informed decision that's in their best interests, and they can make that decision in consultation with their families, with their partners, with their friends, and with their healthcare professionals. So, will we start to see a shift? It seems to be that there's a want for more trial data. Whether or not I think we need more trial data, more trials will continue to go on. And so we will look at that. And I know that Nicola made a comment about talking about it, HSCT in reference to existing treatments. And I think that that's a good point, and maybe that is more of the studies that we need, is trying to get an understanding of how does HSCT compare to existing treatments. Now, there was a study done, again, talking about Richard Burt's study, where he did do a comparison between HSCT and existing treatments. And that study found that this was published in JAMA in, I believe it was the start of 2019. And that found that HSCT seemed to produce better results than those existing treatments. But, and there is an article on this on the MStranslate website that Eric might be able to post the link to. I think the big issue with that study is that it was two groups, and it was HSCT versus existing treatments. And that existing treatments group really included lots of people on lots of different therapies and some of the less powerful ones. And so I thought that it was, quite difficult to make a really accurate comparison out of that. Certainly interesting, and certainly suggesting that we may need more studies to look into that. But I think you would need to restrict that treatment group a bit more to get a more accurate comparison of what you're looking at between the treatments. So yeah, I don't know if that's answered your question, Kevin. The only way to find out about HSCT in the US is on the HSCT Facebook groups. Look, I'm surprised that the MS organization over there isn't talking about it more. You know, that's certainly the thing that I think people power is important. I often talk about the role that the MS community can play in terms of shaping direction, and I've said it before in this call about shaping research directions, but also in terms of shaping policy and things like that. And so I guess it's just, you know, I think that has already happened with HSCT in different places around the world. I think Scotland now has HSCT listed on their, essentially their, as a treatment that can get funded and repaid for MS. But yeah, I think it's about, you know, if there are things that are important to the MS community, we speak out, and you know, MStranslate can be part of those discussions. You know, we're happy to take information that you guys feed to us and try and use our networks to push those messages through as well. But you know, I certainly think it's got a place. I think HSCT has to have a place in the MS treatment landscape. What that place is, we get to see. But, well, yeah, so I mean, that surprises me, Kevin. It does surprise me hugely, especially now. I mean, I think a few years ago there was a reluctancy to talk about it in general from a lot of people, and I'm not singling anyone out with that, but there was a reluctancy to talk about it a little bit because of the concerns around the treatment and of the fact that lots of places weren't offering it as a treatment. And I think part of the problem as well, and this is not to defend anyone, but the problem with HSCT as well is that we have seen lots of places crop up around the world that have taken advantage of people living with MS, to put it bluntly. There are lots of places doing really great work in this space, but there are places who have, you know, essentially been predatory and taken people's, you know, lots of people's money and offered them the world and not followed through at all. And often, you know, we've heard stories about not even really giving them anything. Yeah, that one did use the old full Milo. It did. Yep. And I kind of think, and I can't remember if that's nice of, just so you're all aware, Facebook just gave me a notification to tell me that I was broadcasting live now. So they've missed the they've missed the memo on the fact that I started an hour and 7 minutes ago, and the fact that I'm the one that's broadcasting. But it's good that they've brought that to my attention. Yeah, I can't remember if I commented in that article or not, Kevin, to say that my thoughts on why they used the full Milo form is that they wanted to test the most effective method of HSCT as they could versus the most effective other treatments as they could, to, you know, go as hard as you can for the initial trial, and then see, you know, if you didn't see anything positive from that in terms of the outcomes with disease, then you would go, okay, well, you know, then the non-Milo is going to be less effective. But, you know, obviously they did see benefits to that, so I would assume that they would be repeating that. Not that I've seen it, you may have seen it more than me. I know this is something that you certainly keep your finger on the pulse with, but they may be repeating that now with a non-Milo form. I haven't seen that. So yeah, so that was hopefully that ends. I don't know if I've answered. It's more of a discussion, but hopefully that answered that a little bit. How are we all going? Are we all, well, there's still a lot of people watching, so hopefully this all going well. Is everyone still, am I making sense with the things that I'm saying? It's all okay. I'm just scrolling back through. No worries, Sally. Okay, I don't think I've missed anything too much other than Rosalind, is secondary progressive similar as PPMS in terms of treatment? So they're similar in terms of the fact that there's no real no real effective treatments for that. But there is one. The slight difference is that more recent studies have shown that some of the existing treatments can have benefits for people living with secondary progressive MS, especially if they still have relapses, if they still have inflammatory activity, because that's the target. So to sort of try and summarize this a little bit, our thoughts at the moment in terms of the differences, one of the biggest differences between relapsing or remitting MS and the progressive forms is that there's different things that are driving the disease. So in relapsing remitting MS, what we're looking at is that it's mostly an inflammatory disease, that it's inflammation that's driving the process. And all of the existing treatments then target that inflammation. They try and decrease the inflammation in different ways, and it's all through impacting on the immune system. However, once we move to progressive forms of MS, we think that there's a shift in terms of the main cause of increased damage and disease progression at that stage, and it shifts from being inflammation to being degeneration. So going from neuroinflammation to neurodegeneration. And so the treatments that we have at the moment don't really work on that degenerative aspect of it. However, especially in secondary progressive MS, you can still have people that have inflammation going on at the same time as the degeneration. And so studies have shown that in those people, while if you look at people with secondary progressive as a whole, you may find that the treatments don't look to be that effective. If you just look at the people who still have that inflammatory activity, they may still be experiencing some relapses. The treatments continuing on existing treatments in those cases can actually still have benefits. So that's one of the biggest differences around that. Yeah, Mayzent, sorry, before I get onto Mayzent, just talking about Kevin's comment. So yeah, I've seen mixed data in terms of HSCT for different forms of MS, to be honest. I know what I will say, and I need to go back and look more in terms of some of the more recent data related to HSCT for the progressive forms. What I would say, I think the general consensus at the moment is that it's more effective for relapsing remitting. That's not to say that some people won't benefit, but if we're looking at, I think at the moment, and this is not to say this is my opinion, I'm just relaying what I've heard and what's been discussed at conferences, is that the people who are most likely to get recommended for HSCT, based on the fact that they're seen as the ones who are most likely to have the biggest benefits, are people early in their disease who have really aggressive disease course, so lots of inflammation, and who, as I said, have failed existing treatments. That's not to say that other people can't benefit, and I have also seen the data to show that it can be effective in other forms of MS as well. I think it's just to say that potentially you're less likely to benefit if you're in those circumstances. But this is the same with other therapies. We know that not all therapies work for every person. That's just what if they had to give a framework for who, this is the individual that is most likely to see good results from HSCT, it's that other form. But again, not to say that there can't be positives in other ways. Mayzent, yes. So Mayzent has been approved for Mayzent, also called Siponimod, has been approved for SPMS. I've posted an article about the trial data for Mayzent or Siponimod up on the website as well. So I think if Eric can find my summary of the Siponimod trial data, to be honest, I have to go back and look at the Siponimod trial data again. I wasn't hugely impressed by it, to be honest. Impressed by it is probably the wrong word, sorry. I had questions. I guess coming out of that trial data, I had questions about the benefits that could be seen from it. I think maybe it wasn't necessarily as convincing as all of the hype around it, but now that we have it in a real world setting and we have people with it, which is fantastic, we need treatments for people living with progressive MS. I'm fully supportive of that. I think it will be really interesting. It's far too soon, but over the next couple of years, we will get a lot of real world data for people who are on siponimod, and we'll see what that looks like. And this is where, organizations like MS-Base, who we've talked about a lot before, who are collating clinical information from people living with MS all around the world, become really important. And so that will really enable us to be able to see what's going on with siponimod. So it's too early. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it has been approved for the treatment of SPMS. Christy would love more information on siponimod. Many people report different live side effects than what we've seen in the study neurologist gave me. Yeah, as I said, look, I've done the study summary, so that might come up at some point. I believe it was a video summary, if that helps. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But we don't. It's far too soon to get any real world data on that at the moment to see what's like. But interesting to hear people's experiences, and once we get a lot of those and over a longer time period, we'll see what that looks like. Kevin, no doubt the sooner HSCT is done, the more effective it is. Yeah. Exactly, and I 100% agree with you on that statement. And I think that's what people are saying. It's not to say that there is no chance that will be effective if it's done later on. I guess it's just less likely, and yeah, the more benefits. I think we're on the same page, Kevin. I think we're talking about the same things with this. Isn't it true though that any damage a person has accrued will never be recovered? I'm going to say no. Kathy? Do you want a longer answer to that? It depends what sort of damage we're talking about. So, damage to the myelin, we know that can be repaired. If we're talking about loss of nerves completely, then more difficult. But I don't know that I don't think we're at a point here where we can say, especially with new advances coming about all the time, I don't think we can say that any damage a person has accrued will never be recovered. I think that's true. Sally Ann, is Eric going to show his face one day? Look, unlikely. I mean, most people don't even think that Eric really exists, that he's just a figment of my imagination. I can convince, I can confirm that he does exist. You can see his photo on the website. But apparently he's more than happy he's not more than happy because I said this earlier, but, I'm now appearing on our MStranslate Facebook Live videos with my lockdown hair, and he's still not on here, but he is here in spirit. All of that work that you can see happening in the comment section and all of those links that are being pasted, that's being done by Eric. So while he's not on camera and he's not the face of it, he's working behind the scenes, and he's constantly the one working behind the scenes, and I don't often give him enough credit. So this can be our little moment where I'm really nice to him and say that he does a lot of hard work that you guys don't get to see. So certainly he is just as important to everything that goes on as MStranslate as I am, even though you don't get to see him like you do me. I like to see myself on camera, and I like to sound in my own voice, so that's why I do this. But yeah, him watching it and posting all of those links means that I can just focus on what I'm doing. So that's really important as well. Thanks, Rosalind. It's great to have you on board. Glad that you've enjoyed the discussion. There you go. Kathy's met him. He knows that he exists. Lucy's thanking you. Are we identical twins? No, Castle, we're not at all. Eric's older than I am. And there are many other things that I can say, but at the same time, I'm not going to get into it because I'm just being nice to him. So, no, we are not identical twins. We are very different, both in personality and in looks, but we work together really well, and it is very much a team effort. So yes, give some love to Eric while I'm going through and doing all of this. Ofatumumab, Yeah, just got FDA approval. It does look really good, especially considering the dosing structure of it and the fact that people can do it at home. I posted on that on MStranslate a while back, Kevin. I think it's really interesting that the trial data looks really good. Obviously, we don't have it here yet in Australia, but generally, FDA approval tends to lead to a bit of a snowball effect around the world. So we'll see what happens with that. But I agree, it does look really promising. So I'm just going through. So I've got my list that I'm still trying to go through. So I've done the Oculus Map. Let me just cross off some things. I actually make a list, old school on a pen and paper. So let me just cross off the other things that I've talked about because I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. A couple of quick questions that were submitted beforehand. Laurie asked a question about whether or not we ever talk about social MS research as well as the medical MS research. And the short answer to that is yes. Obviously, my background is more in the medical side of things, well, the immunological side of things. But certainly we like to talk about social MS research. We did a feature towards the end of last year with a group based here in Victoria who are looking at employment outcomes for people living with MS and trying to find strategies to help them have better relationships with their employers and stay in work longer, because we know there are lots of benefits for that. So we talk about employment a lot and certainly other things around that as well. So, and if you ever see any social research that you'd like us to comment on, we'd like to do that. Often we write articles for MS Limited's newsletters, and they tend to be more social research studies. And we also did a Facebook, oh no, sorry, it wasn't a Facebook Live. We did a recorded interview a while back with Dr. Sally Shaw, who was talking about strategies for mental health, especially through this difficult period that we're all going through at the moment. So yeah, we like to talk about anything. So short answer, yes, we certainly do, and we'd love to talk about any topics that may be of interest to you. Other really quick question was a question asked about why JCV testing has to be done in Denmark. A great question, don't know the answer. I know what the test is, quite a simple test. It's just testing for antibodies against the virus. My guess is that there is a company that owns the patent for that test, and they're based in Denmark, so they're the only ones that are allowed to do it. That's my guess behind it. I don't 100% know that, but I assume that's what's going on, because there's certainly no reason in terms of technology or ability to do that test that would prevent it from being done anyone else. So that was that one. Mesenchymal stem cell trials, Debbie asked about. I think I've covered that a little bit before when I was talking about remyelination. To be honest, I haven't seen much in the way of trial data, which I think is what you were asking about. We're still waiting on updates from Tish in terms of what they're doing. There's a lot of talk about animal studies that have looked into the use of mesenchymal stem cells, including in animal models of MS. But I haven't seen any new trial data, but we know it's an area of interest, so we will keep you updated on anything that comes out. Okay, that's most of my things ticked off. So let me go back through questions that have just come in here. I can't believe how many people we've still got watching this at the moment. You guys are amazing. You guys are doing a fantastic job. Keep checking in. Let me know how you're all doing as we keep going through this. Michael, hey Brett, sorry I had to step away. Did you talk about steroids? I have not talked about steroids at all. Is there something in particular that you wanted to talk about in terms of that? We have Kathy, and there's Eric's just posted the link to our premiere with that. And while we've got quite a few people here and while I'm waiting for the next question to come in a little bit, I did this once before and I'm gonna do it again because we're even closer now, but we do have some very exciting news coming out of MStranslate that we will be announcing really shortly that we're really excited about it. It's been a lot of work that's gone into getting this ready to launch, and we are very close to launching it soon, and there will be a number of posts leading up to it, and we're going to maybe even be a little bit cryptic with it and give you some hints as to what it might be as we're coming closer and closer to it. But we think it's going to be something that you're all really excited about, because, well, it would kind of be pointless for us to do something that you weren't excited about. But yeah, we think we're really, really excited about what we're going to be launching soon. It's something really different to what we've done before. It's going to lead to lots more events. It's going to lead to a lot more information. It's going to lead to you guys having even better interactions. Yeah, I'm not going to say any more about it, but hopefully you're all interested. If you're watching now and you've just heard that, and you've heard me basically tell you nothing, but make it seem like it's everything, comment on the video and tell us how excited you are. And maybe the more comments we get telling us how excited you are about it, maybe the quicker we'll release or we'll launch this new initiative that we're working on. It's not that, unfortunately, Cassell. It is MS related. It is going to be, it's continuing. It's not a shift from the principles behind MStranslate, but it's something that we think is really going to add on to what we're doing and really take everything that we're doing to another level. So yeah, if you're interested and you want to know more and you're excited, comment, let us know that you're excited, and then maybe we'll fast track it even more. See, George is very excited. Lucy's excited. This is what I like to hear. I'm excited. Can you tell in my voice that I'm excited? I am actually. Obviously, we're joking around a little bit at the moment, but I am genuinely really excited about what we're going to be bringing to you guys, and I think that's probably coming through a little bit in my voice at the moment. I'm not going to sing that, Cassell. Yeah, I am excited. I'm not that excited that I'm going to. You got lockdown hair. Lockdown hair plus karaoke is not happening, but. Yeah, we are really excited. And yeah, I think there could be some cryptic clues, Sally Ann. I think we might, we're going to try and build a bit of excitement around it. Because, again, it comes back to we want people engaged. We want you guys to be interested in what's coming. But we also want to do some stuff that's interesting, something that's a little bit different. We don't want to be boring and, have a little bit of fun. Because, yeah, a lot of us are in lockdown and, these little things can make things a bit more interesting. So keep telling me how excited you are about that news that's coming. But in the meantime, let me answer a couple more questions. Michael, high dose and AVN, just the effects of long term. It's not, I'm going to be honest, it's not something I've read anything about recently, so I probably can't give you any great answer to that at the moment. What I can do is make a note of it, and I can trawl through the literature and then write a summary up on it from what I can find. But yeah, it's not information that I can tell you off the top of my head because I just haven't read anything on that recently to be able to talk in any great certainty about it. So sorry about that. Keep scrolling through. Jennifer, testosterone researcher, I read an article from 2019 that had some interesting results. Probably covered these topics before. Can you please post some more articles regarding this for all genders? Yeah, great question, great topic. I touched upon sex hormones really briefly earlier in this, but it's a really really interesting topic. I have maybe talked about it before in a Facebook Live. I don't know that I've written any articles on it before. But I have seen similar research to what you're talking about, and it is interesting. Obviously, off the back of, when we look at the fact that more women are affected than men, you could look at that in two ways. You could suggest, if you think it's sex hormone related, you could suggest that there is something about female sex hormones that may make you more susceptible to getting MS. Or you could look at it the other way and say that male sex hormones, such as testosterone, may be somewhat protective against developing MS. And so that research was looking more at that second side and saying maybe it's actually that the testosterone is protective. But yes, I will make a note of that, and I will write some articles on that soon. So thank you for your suggestion. I will definitely do that. Let me write that down. Kim White, bring on the new age. It is a new age. It's a new exciting age. I'm not going to keep harping on about it, but we are excited. Georgia, I know anything that you release will be great. You always put in 100% in everything, and I have no doubt this will be the same. This is 150%. There you go. We're going over 100. No, this is yeah. I was going to say something, but I think that'd give too much away. I just had to hold myself back with that, and not do it. But yes, we're excited about it. Castell, is it going to be a Facebook Live with all of us? Look, I'm not opposed to it. I mean, we've talked about not necessarily as a Facebook Live, though there may be scope to do that in the future as well, because we're looking at how we can link together some of our platforms. But whether or not we did more of a chat over Zoom, where we post a link, and I'll be in the Zoom call, and then people can come in and talk to me in that setting, whether we would just leave that as just for those people in the call, as a nice sort of private atmosphere to be able to sit down and have a chat about some things, or whether we then recorded that and published that video to MStranslate so that other people could watch it as well. We're talking about it. So if there's interest in doing that, we're willing to do that as well. But that's not exactly what we're doing, but it's also not completely wrong. Moving on. Max, is there research being done on the link between the Epstein-Barr virus and MS? Yeah, there's lots. There is lots and lots and lots. So to start from the start, the link between EBV and MS has been around for a really long time. The main reason why that link started, well, I mean, there's a couple of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons why people were interested in the association between EBV and MS, and for people who may not know, Epstein-Barr virus is the virus that causes glandular fever, but many people have been infected with it and never developed glandular fever. And the reason why people have been interested in it is because when you look at percentages of people that have it, the old numbers suggested that it was around 85 to 90% of the general population had been previously infected with EBV, where it was more like 93 to 95% of people with MS had been infected. And so there was this, well, look, more people with MS seem to have it than the normal population, so maybe there's a link. And that's been around from when I was starting research and well before that. And I guess at the time it was always quite, to me, that didn't really ring true. Just my own personal thoughts on it, because while it was slightly higher in people living with MS, it wasn't 100%, and it was still like 90% of the population. So, that it always made it a bit difficult for me to get my head around that maybe it was involved. What's interesting is that there's been a few other studies more recently that have done a couple of different things to make that story look more compelling. One is that there have been a couple of studies now that have looked at exactly that same thing and looked at the percentage of the population that has it versus the percentage of people living with MS that have been infected. And in both of those studies, they found that 100% of people living with MS had been previously infected with Epstein-Barr virus. And that changes things for me, because that suggests that, and what they've suggested is that it is actually necessary for people to have been infected with Epstein-Barr virus. So it's not enough. Getting infected with Epstein-Barr virus doesn't cause MS. It's not, obviously not everyone who does get infected with it ends up developing MS. But what they were suggesting was you couldn't get MS unless you'd been previously infected with Epstein-Barr virus. Now, that would suggest that it's playing some role in terms of the development of the disease. The other, the other interesting study that's been going on recently is actually work based up in Queensland, or started up in Queensland, from Professor Michael Pender. And he's been looking at what happens if you actually clear Epstein-Barr virus out of people living with MS. So what's interesting about Epstein-Barr virus is that it never really gets fully cleared from your system. So you get infected. Most people who get infected don't even get sick, but even though your body deals with it, in the most part, it tends to sit dormant in your body for a long time, even after that. And what Professor Pender started to think was, well, maybe it's sitting dormant is actually having an impact on people living with MS. So what he did was he took, and this is slightly complicated, so just let me know if it doesn't make sense. What he did was he took a person living with MS and he took their T cells out of their body. So he took their blood, isolated their T cells from their blood, and then he cultured those T cells up with Epstein-Barr virus. Essentially what that was to do was to make them hyperactive against Epstein-Barr virus, to make them really responsive against it. He then took those hyperreactive cells and injected them back into the individual and found that doing that enabled them to completely clear the virus. Now, this was initially done with a single person living with MS, and he found in that person, having done that they saw clinical improvements in terms of their MS. They had improved walking, other benefits associated with that. And so this is now going on, and they've started to do some early stage trials with this, and we're really interested to see what those results look like. So there's some new evidence suggesting that maybe Epstein-Barr virus is playing a role. Exactly what it is, we don't know yet. How significant that role is, we don't know yet, but there is research going on into it. This includes asymptomatic cases, doesn't it? Yeah, so that's the way that they've tested that, is by looking at antibodies in the blood of people living with MS or people in general. So if you've been infected before, you will have antibodies that hang around that recognize the virus, which is a sign that you've been previously infected, even if you never got sick. So most of us will have been infected with Epstein-Barr virus, but not many of us will have had glandular fever. Hi Tim, thanks for joining us. I know you've certainly engaged with MStranslate stuff before, so it's great to have you on for a Facebook Live video. My wife has MS and she's trying the 1 day on, 1 day off diet. Do you think this will help in stopping demyelination? We were in Tenerife, but we got to hit channel from a mutual friend in Infion, Munich. No worries, Max. Tim, really interesting study that looked at intermittent fasting in an animal model of MS and saw positive results in terms of remyelination. They also then looked at that, tried to mimic that by using a diabetes drug that's called metformin. And metformin does a similar thing to that fasting, or recreates the effects of fasting. For people who may not be able to, or find it difficult to fast themselves, they can take metformin, and they saw those results again. So in these mice, they found that intermittent fasting led to improved remyelination, myelin repair, versus those who are on the normal diet. And then they also found the same results if they gave those mice metformin. So it's interesting. It was an animal study. We need to know far more about it, so we can't comment yet in terms of saying whether or not intermittent fasting may have the same results in terms of people living with MS, but certainly that was very interesting. And yeah, I mean, there are other studies that have looked out at that, and there is, I believe, some human studies, human trials have looked at it. I haven't seen anything in any great depth, certainly no large studies in terms of that. But the animal study looks interesting, and that summary is available on our website. I believe, again, I did that as a video summary, and Eric might post that in the comments section for you to read. But certainly let us know how it's going. Keep us up to date. We like to hear all of these things. So thank you for joining us. Thanks for sharing that experience with us. Hopefully you find that summary interesting, and stay in touch. Sarah McDowell, what study were you referring to? Was it the EBV study? Because I think Eric's posted the links to all of our EBV summaries, so you should be able to find it in there. So, fatigue. Sorry, I have other things I need to talk about. Fatigue and bee stings are the two that I still have on my list that I need to talk about. There is that fasting and metformin study. Sarah's got the links, so that's good. Fatigue. Look, there are lots of things that are going on in fatigue. I think I said 2 years ago after ECTRIMS in Berlin that one of the most pleasing things to me to come out of that conference was that there were a lot of talks and a lot more focus on symptomatic treatment of MS, that there was a real recognition from researchers and healthcare professionals that while it was fantastic that we were coming up with treatments that were aiming to slow the disease and things like that, that at the same time we needed to be focusing on generating symptom-specific treatments that could have really big benefits on improving the quality of life for people living with MS. And fatigue is obviously one of the biggest ones around that. There are lots of studies that are going on in terms of that. So, I mean, we've talked before about MitoQ, coenzyme Q10 derivative that can be used as a supplement. That is currently in clinical trials, or it's about to go into clinical trials at Oregon Health Sciences University in Portland. So there are lots of different things that are going on into that at the moment. I haven't seen anything that's necessarily available at the moment, but there is lots of different things that are going on in that space in terms of fatigue. So I guess the main takeaway message, one, we know it is something that is really important to the MS community, so whenever we see something on it, we will post about it and we will keep you informed. Two, there is a real growing recognition from the broader MS research community and MS healthcare community that it is important that we are helping deal with those symptoms and helping to manage those symptoms, so there is a focus that's going on into it as well. So hopefully we will see things coming out in that, more and more things coming out in that space in the near future. In terms of bee stings and MS, my honest answer is I have never seen anything convincing regarding it in terms of multiple sclerosis for bee sting venom. Now, that's not to say that there's nothing out there. I did a quick look because it came up a while ago now, and I looked then and I didn't see anything that I thought was convincing in that space in terms of real robust peer-reviewed publications. It's not to say other things haven't come out since then that I haven't seen. It's not to say that it couldn't possibly have benefits if more studies are done. I'm just saying that I don't think the data is out there yet to support it. We talked before about the fact that there is some new data that's come out suggesting that there may be a compound in bee sting venom that may have cancer potential. That's still very early stages with cell culture in a lab. We need to see more on that. So that's probably all of my comments that I can make on that, which then ticks off everything that I have on my list. So yay me for getting through all of that. So with that then, I've ticked off all of my questions that I had to answer, both submitted before and submitted during, I think, unless I've missed anything. I don't think I have. How about the effect of therapeutic fasting on the immune system? So yeah, all I've seen in that space is that one that we've just posted about Max. In terms of what it's doing on the immune system, I'd have to go back and read that summary again. I can't, for some reason, I've got something in my head that suggests they may have looked at some of the cells in the immune system that may have been impacted, but I can't 100% remember on that. So yeah, that's mostly what I've seen. I haven't seen necessarily anything in the MS space on anything more, but I can look into it. And if we see something, we will definitely post about it. There was the calorie restriction study as well, similarly, so slightly different, not intermittent fasting, but calorie restrictions. We posted the link to that earlier, I believe, in the chat, so you can scroll up and see that. that also seem to be effective for remyelination. Okay, I think I have covered all of the questions. I don't think I've missed anything. I really, really do apologize if I have missed anything. But I'm pretty sure I haven't. And I'm sure we covered all of the questions that were submitted beforehand. Thank you, Georgia. Thank you so much for your participation and your kind words. Thank you, Lucy. It's our pleasure. As I said, I really enjoyed doing this. So it's been a fantastic discussion tonight. You guys have been amazing. The questions, the comments, the shared experiences, all really, really great. It's been an amazing conversation tonight. So thank you for coming on board and joining in this discussion. In terms of a vegan diet, Laurie, look, there's lots of stuff about different MS diets that we've seen. We've done interviews with Terry Wiles, we've done interviews with George Jelinek and all of their work, but specifically vegan, I have to go back and look. It is a topic that we're going to be looking into in more depth shortly, and we're going to provide a bit of a summary on what's out there on diet at the moment. We did see today that MS Research Australia posted a short video regarding different MS diets at the moment as part of their Mythbuster series. I need to go and do a bit of an investigation in terms of all of the publications out there about MS diet at the moment to really give a bit more of an in-depth summary of what's going on, because it's not an easy topic to talk about. There is a lot of research, and I think because it is such a big area of interest, we need to give it the time and airspace to discuss it. So we may even do a specific Facebook Live for it in the future, or we may try and get some people to comment on that as well. But yeah. Thanks, Sally Ann. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully the answer to your question was what you were looking for. I've got quite a bit more work to do tonight, but after that I will have a rest. But thank you all. Like if people have stayed on this, if some of the people who joined at the very start have stayed until the very end, you guys are, as Travis would say, you guys are troopers. So thank you again for all of this. As there doesn't seem to be any questions coming in, then we might leave it there. I'll wind up and just again say thank you. Thank you for your participation. These events are nothing without you. If you guys didn't come in and join and watch and ask questions, then it would just be a guy sitting in front of a computer talking to himself. So there's a nothing without you. So thank you again. Thank you for your fantastic questions. Lots of really fantastic questions. Really interesting. Lots of things for me to chase up. And we will be publishing articles on all of that stuff that you've asked about in the near future as well. We will be looking to do one of these again in the near future. So stay tuned. Thank you again. Stay safe, everyone. Continue to follow whatever your government guidelines are wherever you are in the world. But look after yourselves. Look after each other. Stay safe and know that I guess MStranslate is always here. Providing support. And we're all in this together. So thanks everyone. Thank you again, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Stay safe and have a great night. Thank you. Bye.